Welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. We have another repeat guest for you on today's episode, back for his third time on the show. He is the 2024 North American Masters champion, 2024 Asian champion. I think he won pretty much everything he entered in Australia last year. He's the coach at Dominance Thomastown. He is Brentos and my coach. He is Lincoln Hancock. Thanks for joining us, Link.
Good to see you, Legends. Thanks for having me back.
Awesome to have you on, Link. I'm glad that Kim stopped at some stage going through your accolades, mate. We'll be here all bloody afternoon.
Yeah, I just did
we have to list all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a few missing that
the belt, mate. The belt.
There's no stress.
Yeah,
and
you got your second degree as well since last year as well. That was a big milestone for you.
I saw you guys last. Wow. Was that 2023?
Yeah, I think I had to listen to it before. It was just before you went to the Asian Championship in 2023.
Okay, so since that time,
my
second degree, I've won the Fusion Heavyweight title.
Yep, I think you got a bronze at World Nogi.
Double bronze at World Masters.
Yep.
And bronze at Nogi Worlds.
Yeah.
So more or less.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, but
just normal things resuming, Link. Normal things resuming.
Yeah.
We're all trying our best, right? Sometimes it works out. You know what they say? Sometimes shit.
At our last episode with Link, we chatted a lot about your competitive life and you as a competitor. But I think for today, what Brentos and I were hoping to delve more into you as a coach and get a bit. We can obviously talk about the competition side as well. But yeah, just talking about you and your preparation with your athletes for things such as Fusion. So we're recording this a couple of weeks after Fusion, and we just wanted to sort of get your insights into that and how that sort of goes for you, what your sort of prep is and how you basically have so much success with your athletes, particularly for events like Fusion.
And can we start right at the start, Link? So choose it, whether you're choosing opponents and what matches you kind of would accept or wouldn't accept. So can we kind of start at that spot?
Sure. If we even go one step back, like you said, last time we spoke about what I do as a competitor, but the reality is that I'm a coach first and foremost. And when you choose to be a coach, when you choose to open an academy and ask people to entrust their jiu-jitsu careers to you, that's the only choice you have. So it's always students first, Lincoln second. I'm fortunate that we have such a strong culture of competition and cooperation at Dominance that I'm able to do both relatively well. I'm definitely not competing at at my fullest potential because of that choice, but I'm not too far off, I don't think. So these guys and girls who come to me always come first, whether it's their first day as a white belt, first comp as a white belt, whether they're in the kids class, or whether it's someone like Ivan and Juzzy fighting on Fusion. So, so basically to get to the Fusion event, look, we've all competed on Fusion before, myself, Ivan, Juzzy, and a bunch of our other teammates. We've got a pretty good rapport with the promoter, Mateo, who's an excellent guy, and he puts on a good promotion and really puts athletes first, and the sport first. It's always was a promotion we want to align ourselves with as much as we could, obviously, as long as Mateo will have us. And so, with that relationship, Mateo approached us probably November last year, and offered a match for Juzzy. And then Ivan's match came a little bit later, but he offered a match for Juzzy. Juzzy was at the time 3-0 in Fusion. He'd had 2 combat jiu-jitsu matches, which he dominated, and then he'd had a no-gi jiu-jitsu match, which he dominated. And interestingly, combat jiu-jitsu was never our goal, was never our desire, even, to be honest. We wanted to do pure jiu-jitsu. We're jiu-jitsu competitors at heart. There's a reason why these boys don't compete in MMA, because they want to be world champions in jiu-jitsu, gi and no gi. But I guess Fusion are very much leaning towards combat jiu-jitsu, and so we saw that avenue as a way to build Juzzy's brand and to get exposure, which has worked out quite well. And when it comes to that third fight, it's not the one that he just had, but the one before. We got the call from Mateo, whenever that was last year, and he asked for another combat jiu-jitsu match. And I said, hey, look, how about this? How about you give us a straight no-gi jiu-jitsu match, and we prove to you that Juzzy is as exciting in no-gi as he is in combat jiu-jitsu, and we'll prove to you that we can put as many bums on the seats. And we did that. And it was a great match. We sold a lot of tickets. Juzzy put on a great performance, and everyone loved it. And then we kind of said, well, hopefully that's that. But there was one caveat. The caveat was unless, a title match comes our way. So got the call. Mateo said, hey, I want to put Juzzy on his main event for the combat jiu-jitsu 70-kilo belt. And I said to him, look, man, I'm going to have to run that by Juzzy. I'm not sure if he's done with combat jiu-jitsu, even though he excels at it clearly. But I'm not sure if he's done with that or not, and if that's the way he wants to go, but I'll get back to you. And I did tell Mateo, I think it's probably going to take a few days. Let me have a chat with him. And so I was in the academy at the time, and he was upstairs watching some instructionals or something, and I ran up, and I got three quarters of the sentence out, and he said, yep. And so I messaged Mateo and said, well, it didn't take long. We're in. And so that was about November, and a bunch of opponents got thrown at us. Well, not a bunch, actually. That's not true. One main opponent got thrown at us. His name I always fail to pronounce correctly, with all due respect to him. But that's Gentilella. He's the current 65-kilo combat jiu-jitsu champion for Fusion, and he wanted to come up to 70. And we were totally fine to take that match, except I guess getting back to the question you had, Kim, like what makes us, sort of say yes or no to opponents is I look at, of course, a stylistic matchup, but I look at what's going to build these boys' brands, what's going to help their careers in terms of what's a logical progression, what's going to challenge them and build their skill set and raise their profile. And so my thought process was we'll happily fight Gentilella, but it doesn't seem like a smart marketing ploy to fight him immediately. It seemed like a much better idea if we can find an opponent who wants to fight for the 70-kilo belt, capture the 70-kilo belt, and then we can market champion versus champion, which is just going to create much more buzz. So that's basically what happened. Aidan McIntyre's name got thrown around, and we said we'd take the match. He's from 10th Planet in Melbourne under Frank Barker. And eventually, after a little toing and froing, he agreed to the match. So we ended up taking on Aidan, and I guess fortunately for us, there was a lot of footage on Aidan, just like there's a lot of footage on Juzzy. We were able to have a look at his game, work out his style, his little, I guess you could say his cues to some of the techniques he does, and come up with a game plan of our own. And, all credit to Aidan, he gave away probably 3 or 4 kilos to Juzzy. And stylistically, I think a difficult matchup for him. So he has an incredible guard, which he was relying on, but we knew there was, 1 or 2 places where maybe he would be dangerous for Juzzy, but outside of that, there's no real danger, which bore out in the match. So that's kind of how that Juzzy match came about. And then the Ivan match, he was on the same card. He opened the main event. His opponent, God, names are slipping my mind today. Vinny. What's Vinny's last name again? I've forgotten. Sorry, Vinny. My bad. Brent can Google it for us. Brent, be our Jamie, please. His opponent had pulled out, and even though Vinny was a very, very accomplished competitor and a leg lock specialist, and actually a black belt and Ivan's a brown belt, I thought this would be a great challenge for Ivan, and so did he. So we knew that it was a tough match. This was definitely a danger match. It was one that made me a bit nervous taking this match, but at the same time, having a lot of faith in the way Ivan prepares, the way he approaches his training, and knowing how much growth we could get out of the camp for this. Win or loss, he was going to come out a much better competitor. And that's super important at the level he's at, which is, at that brown belt level. We said yes to that one too, and they both eventuated just nicely.
How do you manage something like, I know that Juzzy had to drop a few kilos. How do you manage weight cut? Is that something that you do, Link? Is it something that you put these guys in touch with somebody and go, hey, like let's look at your nutrition? How does that work?
Yeah, look, so basically, both of these guys have been with me since the beginning. You know, Juzzy when he was 12 and I when he was a white belt, when he was 19. And fortunately, we have a pretty good relationship and they trust my advice for the most part, not always. And I'll let them know when they make the wrong decision and I told them to do otherwise. But that's a part of learning and growing up, right? Both as a human, but also as a brother. So things like, you know, which weight division should we take? How should we make it, etc. It's kind of like a group decision, but they'll usually look to me for advice. And 60, coming in under 70 kilos was always going to be a stretch, I thought, for Juzzy. But he was really confident and he kind of proved me wrong. And he actually made 69 kilos really easy. He made it without, we had no sauna, no sweat, no nothing. He just dieted down and then we did a fiber sodium cut in the last 3 days and he stepped on at 69.8 or such pretty easily. And in fact, the next week we flew up to Sydney and competed in the AJP Nationals and he made 68.8. So it was only a few years ago. I was quite a chubby young kid because he's quite young, and he was competing at middle heavy, sometimes medium heavy, but now he's way down at sort of lightweight or below. So
I remember even last year, didn't he have to cut weight to get to lightweight? Like to get to
cut weight to get to 75 at Fusion.
75, yeah.
A video of that. Yeah, I had him in my bathtub and stuff. So look, he's gotten smarter with his diet, and he is growing up. So he's only 20. You got to keep that in mind, I guess. So he was the kid who carried a lot of what we call baby fat, you know, puppy fat or whatever you call it. Yeah, puppy fat. That's the one. And it's just as he's getting more mature, it's starting to come off. So I actually, you know, he has a long way to go physically. Still, he's still strong as an ox already and super fast. But when you look at him and when you roll with him, you know that he's nowhere near physically mature. Nowhere near it. Yeah. So those Macedonian genes are going to kick in a couple of years and he's going to be a little tank. Yeah.
And how does an event like Fusion or any of those sort of big events differ in prep to something like Nationals or VIX or something like that? Is there a different way that you prepare your athletes or is it pretty much the same?
Nah, it's definitely quite different. And so there's a couple of things there. And I think one thing we're big on is, you know, living life to the fullest. And so for us, you know, winning worlds is kind of like, that's the most important thing at present. The boys are about to go into a worlds camp, winning IBJF gi worlds, and later in the year, you know, IBJF no gi worlds. And super fights are like something that we do for ourselves. It's something that we do to you know, live life to the fullest, to develop our brand, to have fun, to be there in front of our friends, etc. But we take them deadly serious, and particularly when there's a belt on the line. So in both these matches, we really, because we had, you know, the fortune of foresight, as our opponents did. You know, the matches were sort of signed sort of November, December, and the event was Feb 21. It's probably November. We had the good fortune of being able to structure a really good focused camp around these opponents, around this rule set, and around their styles. So you don't always get to do that in open competition, but just getting back to the Fusion for a sec. So we're able to, you know, dissect the opponent's games, so analyze what they're good at, maybe what they're not so good at, what their experience is. And obviously we know what the boys' games are, what they're good at, what they're not so good at, what they lack and what they have as their advantages. And we're able to structure a camp around that. So the camp was pretty intense. We pretty much left no stone unturned. So obviously I'm the head coach. I did the majority of the work with the guys, but I also recognize that I don't have all the answers. And I bring in people to plug the holes or to assist in areas I might not be as strong in. So, you know, we're working twice a week with Coach Saeed, who's our wrestling coach. He's an amazing wrestling coach, both on wrestling and on wall rounds. And also Coach Adele, which everyone knows, Adele Fornerino, ADCC double champ. We work with her every week on the leg game as well. So we did that because we knew differently that we didn't really expect any of the matches to go to the cage, but you need to have that in your back pocket just in case. So you always need to be prepared for every contingency, because you might think, okay, it's not going to go to the cage, I'm not going to do much cage work. But your opponent might be thinking, this guy's not experienced on the cage, so I'll push him against the cage, wear him out. Maybe I can get him to full post, take the turtle or something like that. So we made sure we did a lot of cage work, but we did a lot based around their strategies. So, for example, Juzzy's strategy was to take Aiden down and get past his legs as soon as possible and get to top position. While Ivan's was to get off the wall and, if need, circle out and either wrestle in the middle, wait for his opponent to pull, which is what we most expected, which is what happened, or if need be, he would come off the cage and pull himself. So there was no desire to make Ivan a great takedown artist against the cage. Sorry for the cat. Shush. So there was no desire to make Ivan a great takedown artists against the cage, and there was no desire to make Juzzy great at pulling guard for these particular matches. We worked at their strengths and what we saw as weakness in their opponents. And the leg lock thing, same thing. Vinny's an amazing leg locker. Aiden's also a good leg locker. Primary focus was on defense, escaping, because both the boys, our plan was to play top and pass, which is what they've done and what worked out. So the primary focus was on, clear the knee line, whatever the leg entanglement may be, get on top and pass. And it just so happens they also got really good at counter-attacking and attacking the leg locks during that process as well. So maybe their leg game was already decent. It was here, but after, that focus training with Adele and with the rest of the crew, now their leg game's here. So we saw massive progress in their technical abilities through the camp. Yeah. I guess the final thing is, every day I would pull everything together. We would have focus training each day, depending on what the day was, whether it was combat jiu-jitsu, whether we'll focus on leg locks, etc. And then we'll just make sure that the guys were ready and they were sure already. Yeah.
So an event like that, your last, let's say 2 weeks or 3 weeks, take your pick. How does that look for the last 2 or 3 weeks? And then into the night, and how you keep the guys focused and how you keep them relaxed, and can you do those two things on the night?
Yeah, absolutely you can, and it's different for each athlete, and in particular Ivan and Juzzy are actually quite different, even though they're kind of inseparable in the gym. I think to understand how the last 2 weeks looks, you need to understand how the camp looks. And so I have a basic template for training camps in terms of intensity and volume that I'll always stick to, that I've derived from watching other sports in particular. One thing about jiu-jitsu is it's somewhat amateurish. So I like to look at sports where there's a lot of money involved, because if there's a sport where there's a lot of money involved, unlike jiu-jitsu, that means a lot of money is invested. So if there's a lot of money to win or gain through marketing, that means there's a lot of money to be invested, which means that you have the best sports scientists and the best strength and conditioning coaches, etc. And there's a lot of time spent on working out what, works and what doesn't work. And so the general sort of thing I've landed on for most camps is most camps will start with a high volume phase where the intensity is sort of normal, moderate. And this could last 2-3 weeks. In this case, it lasted maybe 6 weeks. And during that high volume phase, it's really about just furthering skill development, and in particular skill development relative to the match coming up. And this is one of the differences, Kim, between super fights and open competition. Open competition, you don't always know who you're going to get and in what order. So it's much more difficult. It's much more general. But in super fights, it's very easy to sort of focus on one opponent. So the first sort of portion, which would have been a solid 6-8 weeks, was skill development based on the particular areas they need to improve on, which we already spoke of, leg attacks, leg defense, wall wrestling, getting off the cage, etc. So that's high volume. These guys almost always do high volume. Like, high volume is important if you want to be good at jiu-jitsu. So that's pretty much high volume. Then we move into the middle phase where we increase the intensity as well. So we essentially start high volume, then we go high volume and high intensity. So now by the middle phase, we're putting into practice almost a competition pace every day, all the skill set that we built during that first phase that's relevant to the match. Yeah. And then making sure it works with the rest of the game and fine-tuning any issues, etc. And that lasts a few weeks as well. And then as we get closer, say 2 weeks out, the intensity has to stay. So I think one of the biggest mistakes is people pull intensity out early, which is just an absolutely disastrous mistake. The volume comes away first, not the intensity. So they stay at a high intensity, but they start doing shorter rounds, longer rest breaks, every now and then take a session off, etc. And that's important, because when you take the intensity out, you take the timing away. So timing's important, particularly in no-gi, particularly in combat jiu-jitsu where things are fast. And dealing with the intensity of a match is important. So you don't want to take that out too early, or you can really lose that edge. And you might not notice it. in training, but you'll notice it when the competition comes. So getting back to it, so sort of the early phase was high volume, skill acquisition, skill development, okay? Then high intensity, high volume, putting it all together in a competition scenario. And then as we get closer, sort of 2 weeks out, we start to pull the volume out. And we pull the volume out, but we keep the intensity high right until about a week out. So, we still had these guys going hard off the wall at the end of a session in front of 60 people, the week before or 8 days before the event. Then sort of the 5 days out, we start to bring the intensity out as well. Yeah. So now by that point, we're looking to freshen them up, let their body recover, let their fitness come to the fore. And you'll be surprised how tired you can feel mid-camp and after, 1 or 1.5 week deload, how much you realize, actually, I'm really fit. Actually, I have really good conditioning. It's just that I've been tired. And then we focus on the little things, keep a little bit of intensity there, but only for very, very short duration. So focus on the start of the match and that kind of stuff. And then, sort of 3 days out, they're basically doing very little. Of course, that always varies in the camp. So Juzzy got a pretty big injury mid-camp. He's, for those who know him, he's pretty injury prone. He's had more surgeries than I've had, and I'm 43, almost 44, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu twice as long. And so he tore his patella tendon a little bit off the bone in one of his knees in like the most benign way. He just shot for a takedown, came up, stand up, and then felt a little twinge and whatever. So we worked with our physio, Chris Tandy from Stride Physio, and we managed the injury. And so he lost a little bit of intensity, but, at that point, a lot of the work had been done, and he's been training 8 years now or whatnot. So it's not all going to fade away overnight. But generally speaking, Brent, to answer your question about the camp, that's how a camp will go for us. Yeah.
And then the night of?
Look, the night of is really cool, man. Like, I guess one of the things you got to think about is I've had 7 or 8 super fights. I've had 7 or 8 super fights. Juzzy's had a bunch of super fights. I've had super fights here, Perth, Sydney, not Sydney. I've had Sydney here, Perth. I've been all over Australia on most of the shows, most of the big shows anyway. And so we're kind of like pretty well accustomed to this scenario. And then we're fortunate also that, Fusion's in our hometown. It's in Melbourne. We've been there before. We know everyone. We know the promoters. We know the referees' faces, the security guards and stuff. So it's pretty comfortable for us, which is definitely a home court advantage, which, Juzzy's opponent also shared that, though Ivan's didn't because he was from Queensland. But, yeah, pretty much on the day, the boys know what to do. I leave them alone in the morning. One of the things that I've discovered is once the training's done, it's best not to think too much about the competition. You can really get yourself super nervous, or the opposite, which is what happens with these boys. You get too G'd up, you get too excited, the day out, the day before, and you burn a lot of energy you don't need to burn. So we just try to keep our mind off it. We do other things, read books, watch movies, mess around, etc. And honestly, the show started at 6. I didn't contact them until about 2 p.m. So I contact them, ask them how they're doing, what time they're getting to the venue. They tell me, I'll leave it at that. And then come sort of 5 o'clock, contact them again. Do you need anything? And Ivan says no. And Juzzy says, this might be a weird request, but can you bring me some dental floss? He got something stuck in his tooth. I mean, that's my job. Like, I need to make him feel comfortable and ready. So I go to the supermarket and get some fucking dental floss. It is what it is, Yeah. At the same time, I shot them a message about their game plan, which they know quite well anyway, but just a visual reminder, a little dot point. This is the plans. Okay. And then we get to the venue, and, when we get to the venue, it's pretty lighthearted. We spend a lot of time joking, mucking around. Coach Seed was there. He's funny as. We brought our judo coach, Sajjad, into the back room for a little bit. He's a funny guy. And we just try to focus on just chilling out, 1, and 2, really appreciating the moment. We're privileged to live this life. Not many people get to do this. Just in the general level, not many people get to do this. Worldwide level, there's people who don't even have the good fortune to be able to do jiu-jitsu or fucking get food or water. You know what I mean? Like, And so we just focus on what a privilege it is and what a buzz it is to be here and do these things that we get to do. And live the life we get to live, and watch our friends compete. And we don't really switch on until maybe 45 or an hour out from the match. That's when we start to switch on. Yeah. And at that point, the boys go through the warm-ups, which we all know what their game plans are, or they know what their game plans are. So the warm-up is very specific to them. Most of Juzzy's warm-up was on, we identified that his partner, Aiden, likes the shoulder check before he pulls guard or jumps guard. So we're always going to pop that elbow and shoot straight off the shoulder check. So that was most of his warm-up. And, that's exactly how the start of the match played out. So if anyone watches the match, you'll see exactly what we mean. The match pretty much went exactly to plan. Both of them went exactly to plan. And I've spent a lot of time working his passing and clearing his knee line, which were the crucial parts in his game. So that was the warm-up, and the boys put their headphones on, their favourite music, and then we wait till it's go time. That's pretty much it. It's actually nothing special, except maybe, I eat too many of the lollies that they leave for the fighters in the back room, and I always get a messy stomach. That might be my nervous twitch, or it's just on the pig. Probably just on the pig.
And Link, so what's next, both for the guys or the team and you? You mentioned Worlds Camp, so that's starting pretty much now. Are you also going to be prepping for North American Masters yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I wanted them to have a little bit of a deload. As it was, we went the very next week up to Sydney to compete in AJP along with Cade, one of our purple belts, who's a world's medalist himself. He only just joined us. He's a great guy and an excellent athlete and a huge prospect. And some of our kids as well. But to be honest, we just went. And so one of the things that's important, I think, competing wise, is that you can't run a camp and a deload for every competition you do. So we couldn't run for AJP what we just did for Fusion. It's just too much work on the body. It's too much work mentally. It's mentally exhausting. And it does detract sometimes from skill acquisition when you're constantly focused on competition prep. And so, we always rate our competitions A, B, and C, and C comps we don't train for per se. So being where AJP was on the calendar, we had to mark it as a C. So the boys took it pretty easy that week. Juzzy decided to cut weight again, which I suggested maybe not, but he wanted to do it. So I let him do it. It's his choice at the end of the day. If it was a horrible idea, if he said, I want to make 64, and I would just be like, no. But, he said he wanted to make 69, which he did. And so we went up there, we competed, and then the boys, continued to deload. So they'll take it pretty chill. Where are we now? March, April, May. Yeah, they'll take it pretty, normal until the end of March, which will include the New South Wales State Championships, which we'll be going to. We have a big team going there, maybe 15, 20 people. And then we start to ramp the camp up again for Worlds. So the thing about Worlds is that obviously it's the most important thing to these boys. They're all pretty devoted to the gi. It's sort of their dream since day one to win gi worlds and emulate their heroes like Tyner Dolper and Lucas Lepre and such. And so it's a really important event, and everyone who enters is at the absolute peak. So you have to train really hard for this, and we do. We'll leave for the US on May 11, and we'll be there 3 weeks. So what will happen is we'll go to Artos, which is where we go to when we go to the US primarily. Artos in San Diego and Andre Gaval. And we'll compete the first week there. We'll compete the San Diego Open, which will be a final tune-up. And then 2.5 weeks after that will be Worlds. For me, International Masters, but for the boys, Worlds. And the thing about that is, if you can imagine, you're going to Artos in San Diego. So we're talking, one of the top 3 academies in the entire world. And you're going there 3 weeks from Worlds. And so what happens when you go to a place like Artos 3 weeks from Worlds is you have all of the best guys in the world, Andy Murasaki, Gustavo Batista, Ronaldo Jr., et cetera, deep in their Worlds camp. They're close to peak. And so the intensity and the technical level is incredibly high. So you get off the plane and you walk into this room full of absolute killers at their maximum, or I should say at their optimum. So the plan this year, to get back to the point, Kim, is that we will pre-camp. So starting sometime in April, we'll do 3 hard weeks of camp. Then we'll deload 1 week, which will include the travel. and then we'll hit the ground running at Artos and basically pick up the camp again. So it'll be a 6-week camp, 6 to 7 week camp in terms of intensity, because from now on, every session's about Worlds, but the actual camp will be sort of 6 to 7 weeks with a 1 week deload in the middle, so we don't absolutely fry ourselves. And particularly when we're traveling, 15 hours, really by the time you get to the airport, pick up a car, go to San Diego, you're traveling 20, 24 hours, etc. So you have to be careful of that. But that's kind of like the next phase of their journey over the next few months. And it's pretty exciting. It'll be pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely something I look forward to for the whole gym, Dominance crew, those of us who'll be sitting at home cheering and watching, and then those of you going over. How do you then, as a coach, Link, because you will also be competing while you were there, and probably during those camps and those sorts of things, how do you then prioritize some of your training and then making sure that all the boys are in, or all the team going over are in the best shape they can be? Mate, you got to feed that cat one day soon, eh?
It really wants to go outside, but they're not allowed outside. Occasionally my partner takes them out, and now they're like obsessed with going outside. This is a rescue, sort of a rescue. So my partner works at emergency vet, and this cat was the blood donor for like 8 years. And then so every time a cat come in the transfusion, they put it under, take its blood and give it to the cat to save the cat's life. So she's probably saved 1 billion lives. But now she annoys mine. But yeah.
That's a cat's role.
Yeah, that's it. Where was I? Look, everything's planned, right? So the boys are very clear on what they need to do. We're at, one of the very, very top academies. We're talking like in the gi, there's a handful of academies at the level of Artos where we'll be in San Diego. So I really get to put in a fair bit of training. I'll be training alongside them. I keep an eye on them, but then we do debrief after every session. What went well, what went bad, how you feeling, how's your weight, that kind of stuff. And by this point, we're just tuning up. So I just keep an eye on what's going on, make sure that, they're not getting injured, make sure their weight's decent, not dropping too fast or too slowly, listen to their feedback from their session, give them some technical or strategic or conceptual advice if needed, keep them in good spirits, keep them on the straight and narrow, I'll just get one in and out meal kind of thing, have to sort of be the dad or the boss a little bit, which is my job, and it's actually not that hard. Again, we've done this so many times. This will be 4th, 5th time over there for this. So, it's no stress.
And then you're training in the middle of all that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, competition training is 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. When it comes to Worlds every day. So we're all training. Yeah, we're all training. I'll be there training mainly with adults, which is great because the level I'm training with is not the level I'm competing against for the most part, apart from, the very top 1-2%. And even, this whole thing could go the other way. I might say to Ive or Juzzy or whatever, like, I'm having trouble with this position. Do you have any ideas? Often after that 3-hour competition class, you might head back in the afternoon, do some drilling and work on some of the problems. So it's pretty easy, to be honest. Like, the training is incredibly hard. Don't get me wrong. It's exhausting, and getting up at 4 a.m. really sucks. But in terms of managing it, it's not too hard.
And switching tack a bit here, Link, you mentioned about you be training with adults. So, but then you're going to be competing at Masters. As a coach, do you sort of grade or treat differently adults versus Masters when, like, within the gym, in terms of the standards that you set them at?
Good question. So, firstly, it's no secret that Dominance is sort of one of the gyms that grades a bit harder. We've always done that. We believe it's better to overcook a student than undercook a student. And I've definitely seen with my own eyes, not through Dominance, but through people maybe who have come to Dominance, that giving someone a rank that they're not ready for is often the worst thing you can do to them. It really can demoralize them. And so we have general kind of levels of technical, strategic, and conceptual understanding that we expect of everyone, but you can't grade everyone the same. So while we may expect a certain technical, conceptual, or strategic level of everyone as the baseline, doesn't mean the execution is going to be the same. So if you've got a 50-year-old who has a business and trains twice a week, you don't expect them to keep up with, the equivalent rank full-timer who's 19 years old. That would just be insane. That's not possible in any endeavor in life. But we strive to make sure that they still have the technique and the conceptual understanding that is required of that rank, even if the execution is not the same. So I think it's not just between adults and masters that we will sometimes grade differently, but it's in between those groups, or intra-adult, intra-master. So if you're a master competitor whose aim is to win world masters and you're training 6-7 times a week, that's not the same as the person who's training twice a week. And same for adults. If you're a full-timer, that's not the same as someone who comes in twice a week to, learn some jiu-jitsu, learn a little bit of self-defense, build confidence, see friends, have a support group, etc. They're not the same thing. We still expect a minimum, but if anything, the difference is in that I'll hold the competitors to an even higher standard above the minimum. And so, a good example that I won't use names, but we have a blue belt who's been with us since he was in the kids class. He's an absolute animal. He's come silver at No-Gi Worlds. By most standards, he's at least a purple belt, but he wants to be a very good international competitor. And that standard is a little bit different. And he's young. He's 18, so there's no rush. And so, he's not yet got his purple belt. And that's something he agrees with. He actually came to me recently and said, hey, we've got a big team going to Asian Masters in June, Asian Championship, sorry. And he's like, hey, I want to do one more major at blue belt. So that's what we're doing. And so, yeah, it always varies. There is like a standard. You can't let the floor fall out. If you do, if you let one slip, what happens is you judge the next one by the one that slipped. And then if you let another one slip and you judge the next by that one, before you know it, you're 3 or 4 rungs down where you want to be. So you can't do that. But at the same time, you have to judge people by where they are in life, what their physical and mental attributes are, and what they want out of jiu-jitsu. Everyone wants to get something different out of jiu-jitsu, and that's totally fine. Yeah. So I would say, if anything, the main difference is the competitors get graded harder. Yeah. And now it might seem like they go through at the same pace, but that's because they're training every single day. But I'm scrutinizing them more closely. Yeah, absolutely.
I think one of the things from my perspective that you do very, very well, Link, is you encourage people to be the best that they can be at the level that they would like to be. You don't Thomastown has a lot of competitors in there. You don't push anyone to compete, but you encourage people to be the best that they can be, and I think that shows on the competitive scene, but it also shows in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of being happy and satisfied with your jiu-jitsu journey, So like I said, if someone can only come in twice a week, then let's make sure that you come in twice a week every week. That's a non-negotiable. And that you give 100% of yourself and focus 100% during that hour and a half that you're there. And that goes a long, long way. You can get quite good training 2-3 times a week if you do that. And you may have things in life, family, etc., that means you can't or don't want to compete at the world level, and that's totally fine. But you still want to be the best you can be. No one goes to jiu-jitsu to be less than the best they can be or to be mediocre. Everyone wants to be the best they can be for where they're at in life. And that can also change. You might start out as a hobbyist, become a competitor, go back to being a hobbyist, etc. And that's a normal phase of life. Like, we all go in and out of things depending on what's going on outside of the gym. But I think that's really important. The other thing is no excuses. Yeah, you guys probably know I don't really like excuses. I don't really like cutting slack for superficial reasons, like I'm old. Okay, yeah, you're old, but doesn't mean you can't do the technique, or I'm big, or I'm small, or whatever. These are things that I think they're just letting yourself off the hook when you shouldn't be letting yourself off the hook. Sometimes you just need to find another way, or you need to hold yourself to the highest level available to you. Again, if it's 2 times a week, you hold yourself to the highest level for those 2 1.5 hour sessions a week. Keeping in mind, you're not going to be the same as someone doing 15 hours a week, but you want to be the best you can be on those 2 days. On the flip side of that, I'm really big on telling athletes and students, don't be hard on yourself. Don't hate yourself. Don't be down on yourself when things go wrong. Accept that things go wrong, but don't let yourself off the hook at the same time. So if something goes bad, it's not because you're bad at jiu-jitsu or you're a bad person or whatever. It's just that particular situation, whatever it may be. You made a mistake or you don't understand the position, etc. Just look at it as objectively as possible and fix it. So you could hate yourself and somebody, I'm shit at this, I'm no good, and then they end up quitting. But that's not the case at all. It just means that you have a knowledge gap in that area. By the same token, you can't just ignore it and go, next time I'll just do it better. But if you don't practice, if you don't drill it, if you don't understand it, you won't do it better next time. So that balance is important, I think, both to be happy with your jiu-jitsu journey in terms of progress and also not to be unhappy with your jiu-jitsu journey in terms of being unfairly negative towards yourself when, it's not a judgment on your character. Like, we make mistakes. I make them all the time. So if I lose a match, I'll be on my phone in the bullpen trying to jot down what went wrong, make sure I get back to the gym and try and fix it. Don't hate myself because I zigged when I should zag. Like, shit happens. Like, we're human, we're not machines.
And I think you've sort of touched on it, certainly in previous episodes that you were on, and you've touched on it a bit here, but can you talk a little bit too about the culture at Dominance, particularly for listeners who are not members there? And, it's something that definitely stood out to me when I first joined. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, culture, we have a saying in Dominance, culture is king. So if you get culture right, everything else will flow underneath it. And it doesn't matter how technical you are or how much competition accolades you have. If the culture is bad, if you're not able to manage the culture, if you're not able to connect with people, inspire people, lead people, create an environment where everyone's helping each other and everyone's happy, you're just not going to produce good results. You're not going to have a big academy and et cetera, et cetera. And I think there's a lot we could say here, but I'm going to give an unnamed example. We've been to a couple of the top tier academies in America, and one of them is incredible. The technical level is amazing, but culturally it didn't suit us. And when we were there, we were not happy. So, yeah, we were around all these superstars and getting amazing coaching, but the vibe was, let's just say the vibe wasn't the vibe we like or we're used to or we perform best at. And so we knew we weren't going to get the best from training there. And that's why we made the switch from that academy to Artos. So Artos we found to be a much more friendly environment, much more jovial, very similar to home, but still trains very hard and has a very high bar in terms of technical proficiency. And so we're happy when we go there, and we know if we're happy, we're going to perform better. And so I think about that a lot when it comes to culture at the gym. So we do train hard. We do competition focused jiu-jitsu. We make absolutely no excuses or claims of anything otherwise. We're a competition gym. That doesn't mean everyone's going to compete, but that's the type of jiu-jitsu we teach. That's what we look at. That's what we're motivated by. And we do like to train as hard as possible. It's always a balance, outside of injury and burnout, but we train hard. But at the same time, it's important that people are happy. So it's important that for us that we have an environment that's hardworking and technical, but also lighthearted. We're always having a lot of fun. We're always hanging shit on each other, always supporting each other. When we go to a competition, if there's 5 Dominance people there'll be 10 Dominance people just who drove an hour just to watch and support. And those numbers just escalate. So last Fusion, we had over 100 people there to support Ivan and Juzzy. So building that sort of environment where everyone feels a part of the team, like they have some ownership in the academy. As I say to the guys, like, culture is like a wall. It's made by bricks, and as coaches like myself, Dave, Coach Murray, etc., we lay the foundation, and we put the wall where we want it, in the direction we want it to go. But everyone who comes in puts a brick in that wall, and together we just keep building that wall until it gets higher and higher. And that, I think, is really important. And I guess for us, it's just worked out really well. So it doesn't mean Dominance is going to be the gym for everyone. We definitely have some people who trial and find it maybe a little too intense, and that's okay. There's academies that have a different focus, and maybe that's a better fit for them. That's fine. But we really enjoy the way our academy runs. Our retention is incredibly high. The results are solid, so we'll keep going as we're going. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 100%.
Should probably ask you that question. You came from, or both you guys came from other academies. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's better from
Yeah,
you.
my perspective on that link would be the gym I came from was that more sort of casual, cruisy sort of gym. And starting as an older guy, if I went straight to dominance, it would have been an interesting thing to see, if I could hack it, like would I have been able to just jump straight into that sort of level of intensity? Or did I need like a little bit of rounding in jiu-jitsu before I went there? I mean, who knows? It's just hypothetical, right? So,
Oh yeah,
I'd like
100%.
to think I would have
I
stuck it out.
agree, Brent. Like, I mean, I joined as a black belt, and especially the first few months, like I questioned, my will to live. Really, sometimes I would be driving home. Lucky it's only a short commute now. Just thinking like I need to give the belt back. Like I just did not feel adequate at all. So yeah, it very much what you were saying about the level being high. It is, and definitely you need to be able to handle that intensity. So perhaps it isn't for everyone, but at the same time, it's such a friendly, happy place. Like I don't think that anybody's there actually trying to kill you, or if they are, off the mats, they're very, very friendly. So it's a really great culture and a great community, I feel.
And sorry.
No, you go, Luke.
I was going to say that's a good balance that we've managed to strike between that sort of hard training and looking after each other, and the tight bonds, and you see that in there'll be, and I have nothing to do with it, and I don't want anything to do with it, but you might get 15, 20 students who go out on a social outing together on the weekend or whatever, or have their own Instagram groups where they talk back and forth and all that kind of stuff. And I think more power to that. Like I love that. I don't get involved. I don't need to get involved. I love that the team sort of bonded really closely together. And even those newer people that come in, those older people, everyone supports them, everyone helps them. I make sure that they realize that, hey, you started when you were 50. You don't need to keep up with the Joneses. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be realistic in your training. But like we said before, don't make excuses for yourself. Just be realistic. Don't let yourself off the hook, but don't expect yourself to keep up with Kieran or, one of the black belts or Juzzy or whoever it may be, and I think that's really important. And I guess some of the things that sort of have blown me away over time, it certainly brought tears to my eyes because I'm known to get teary from time to time, is just some of the interactions I've had with students where they've said things, that, dominance is kind of kept them on the straight and narrow, that they were having significant issues as far as students have told me they've had suicidal thought patterns and stuff. And it's the academy that sort of helped them the most. And, or they've, I don't want to go into it, but there's a lot. Yeah. And so sometimes I sit and I just sit and the realization hits me how much the academy means to people. And that kind of blows me away because obviously it means a lot to me. With the backing of Dave, I built this with my bare hands from 4 students to classes of 60 students, and, champions, et cetera, et cetera. And so it means a lot to me. But when I see that it means the same or more to others, it's like really humbling and quite emotional and something I'm super proud of. I do say to people, like, it's half in jest, but it's reality. Like, if I died tomorrow, I'd die happy. I've found my place in the world with the academy. I've done what I wanted to do for other people.
Yeah.
I think that was basically my post that I put up on Instagram yesterday. Like the house that Link built, and I think that was it was pretty true. Seeing all of those people on the photo that you put up from the team at Fusion, I think that was that kind of speaks volumes to that link.
And just on that, everyone contributes, and also I was very fortunate to be set on a path by Dave, my coach Dave, and Cam Rowe, one of my old coaches, now runs Rise, and I walked into the RoD Academy at the beginning, I believe, and had good mentors from the start, and John Will and even Jamie Murray from Renegade's been a mentor for me culturally as well. So I was fortunate with that, and then things have worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I just want to loop back a little bit to what we were talking about with people coming into the gym when they've been at other gyms or something along those lines. One of the things for me coming in when I started at Dominance was I definitely did feel a big skill discrepancy between where I was and when I joined the gym. But it never actually phased me. Nobody made me feel shit for being the level I was and the rank that I'd been given. And I think that's one of the things that I've seen a lot, whether it's been new blue belts or purple belts or even black belts coming and training with us. They're never made to feel shit about their rank. Like, that's the rank you've given. You've earned that, and then if there are holes in your game, like, let's upskill you to get you to where you need to be. So I think that also speaks volumes for what you do too.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and that's definitely like part of our philosophy. So I guess there's like two approaches to an academy, and I've been fortunate enough to see both pretty close. And one is the sort of top-down filter approach. So if you make the best guys very, very good, and if the coach puts a lot of time into them, it kind of filters down to the rest of the crew and they improve. And that definitely works. There's no doubt that doesn't work, but it can create some sort of cultural issues around sort of elitism, favoritism, resentment, etc. Whereas we prefer what we call, the rising tide lifts all boats. So when I look at the gym, when I look at a room, when I look at a mat and I'm coaching, I don't think, how can I make Ivan better, or how can I make Jazzy better, or how can I make Alex better? I think, what's going on over the entire mat? How do I lift the whole mat? And if I lift the whole mat, those at the top are going to lift as well, because their training partners are getting better, because the technical level in general is getting better, and everyone's going to improve, and everyone's going to be able to help each other. You'll know it for yourself that the color belts of all belts here will grab a white belt if they're, doing something less optimally, and they'll be happy to take 10 minutes after class and help them, or 20 minutes after class and help them, and everyone's helping everyone. And I think that approach is really important, just for the gym in general, for the white belts, but also for the people who come from other gyms where perhaps the journey's been different, the gym's had a different focus, and they feel that they're not quite at that level. We're here to pick them up, not put them down. Jiu-jitsu is here to help us as people, not for us to bully people and show them how good we are. We go to competitions to prove ourselves. We don't need to do that in the academy. In the academy, we're trying to make everyone better. And for the most part, that works out really well. And the only drawback, like I said, I think like the worst thing you can do to someone is grade them too early. And so sometimes for people, it's rough for the first few months. Then you have other people like, who come in and smash half of us anyway. So they're already at it.
Yeah. Something I noticed just on that too, Brent, off the mat from when I first started, I think there was a fusion event or one of the events coming up soon after I joined. And Link, you said, we've got tickets and we're all sitting together. And that was, for me, that was quite different to what I'd experienced at my previous gyms, that for an event like that, we would be all sitting together. And even at the comps, we all get together and we all sit together. So that's something that is also quite different for me. Yeah. I hadn't experienced that before.
Definitely, like, part of having a strong culture is having a strong sense of belonging and team and community. So things like that, as much as it breaks my balls to have to manage, physical tickets, we always tell the promoter, block us out, 60 seats, because I want to make sure that we're all together, that if there's anyone who doesn't have someone to go with, they're going by themselves, or they're going to come with their teammates, they're going to sit with their team. You're never going to be left alone. If you're with Dominance, we don't want to see someone out there by themselves. We all work together. We all help each other. We're all part of the preparation. Even if one person steps, in the cage, in this case, in the superfight, we've all helped them get there. There's no again, separation between the competitors and the non-competitors, and it's important for us that we bring everyone along, and that's worked, really, really well for us. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like when I probably said this in a previous podcast, when I first started coaching there, I would think to myself, if I was a new person or if I was a blue belt, how would I want the gym to feel, look, and operate? And I just did that, So people may do it other ways, but that would be foreign to me, just in terms of my experiences and my personality and what I want to do. And same with the people who join the gym and stay at the gym, which, is most of them.
Yeah.
What is jiu-jitsu to you, mate? What does it mean?
Fuck, no one's ever asked me that, eh?
That's deep.
That's deep, eh? Whew. Look, first let me just say I'm very fond of saying jiu-jitsu is to you whatever you want it to be. Something I've never liked is jiu-jitsu is self-defense, or no, jiu-jitsu is sport, or, no gi is better than gi, or any of that shit. Like, jiu-jitsu is jiu-jitsu. What you want it to be and the role it plays in your life is up to you. Like, I've actually said this in person over other things, but I'm not the jiu-jitsu police officer. I'm not the jiu-jitsu fucking commissar. Whatever you want to do is up to you. Yeah, we have our way of doing it at Dominance. So if you want to come with us and do it our way, great, you're more than welcome. But if it's not the same, that's fine. Like, who cares? So jiu-jitsu to me, look, without sounding cliche, it's obviously it's a sport. I enjoy combat. I'm not going to lie. I came from Muay Thai. I'm competitive. I like to compete. It's not just the results. I enjoy the actual scrap itself. And that's something that, you develop over time. I have this saying like, you embrace the grind. So at first you embrace the grind, then you start to enjoy the grind, then you seek the grind out. You want the grind. You're looking for the grind. That's something I enjoy. And that leads to the main point is it's a vehicle for improving yourself. Pretty much a large part of my character, a large part of the things I've been able to do in life and relationships with people and stuff is because jiu-jitsu has, taught me these things and has molded me into this person. Both good and bad, like I always say, jiu-jitsu simultaneously fills you with joy and angst. Joy because it's such a wonderful martial art and you're with your friends and you're doing all this awesome stuff, and angst because you want to be better, but it's so hard. You know what I mean? Like, so, like you can be on the podium at Worlds and you're on the bottom step and wow, you're at the podium at Worlds and that's so amazing. But then you look and you're like, but I'm not the world champion, for fuck's sake. You know what I mean? It's like,
again.
Yeah,
again.
But I think jiu-jitsu is whatever you want it to be. For me, it's everything. It's my whole life. Like it's literally, I said this to someone the other day. So I'm almost 44. I've been training since 2006, 2007. Now the early years were off and on, whatever. I've had 5 surgeries. I've given up careers and friendships outside of jiu-jitsu to a large degree, etc. for this. It's difficult at times, the role I have for my relationship with my partner, but every day I put my belt in the bag, I'm still excited. And every time I open my gear bag, I put my gear in my belt. I'm still excited to go to training. I'm still excited to see the team. I'm still excited to learn new things, try things, have a role. It's still as I wouldn't say it's as magical as it was on day one because obviously I understand it a lot better now, but it still feels that same feeling inside as when I first started. And I don't think that'll ever end. And if it does, and then that's that. Like, if it does, it does, and that's it. Then someone else can take the academy and I'll sail off into the sunset. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Awesome. I think that's probably a good place to stop. Thank you once again for giving up your time, Link. It's been amazing to chat with you. I think Brentos has been asking for ages to get you on, and I've been sort of holding off. So yeah, I'm really glad that we did this. Did you want to do the wrap up, Brent?
Yeah, just the last thing, mate. Were you how worried were you when Juzzy was trying to get his rashi off, mate? Do you think it was going to be stuck?
Nah, not at all. But I do believe that that deserves its own highlight. And the amount of comments I got from that, like both in person on Instagram, people are like, next time in your training camp, you need to work on teaching him how to undress himself. And I don't know who pulls their rashi off from the mid part when you're sweaty, but the kid did amazing. So, good on him. Whatever it was, I wasn't going to hang shit on him forever, but he's a champ.
Yeah.
He is the champ. He's a champ. You're a champ as well, Link. Thanks. You, mate. As Kim said, I really appreciate you coming on. I've been dying for this one to happen. I appreciate you being my coach. I appreciate you being my friend and my brother and the person that I enjoy traveling with, competing with and hanging out doing jiu-jitsu with, mate. So thank you for coming on. Remember, guys, we've still got a couple of T-shirts left. We've also got our soap, so check that out.
You should get one.
Yes, you should. But I think that's it. We'll have this one out pretty soon. We appreciate everybody listening. I'm sure this one will be listened to far and wide, mate. You're loved around Australia and around the world. So we appreciate you all sharing that for us. And we will see you all on the next episode of Roll or Die. Now, in an hour, we're going to be on the mat. So I'm pumped for that. Let's go.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, legends.
Thank you.